Welcome to Truck Chat, an interview series coming to you from Work Truck. I'm Lauren Fletcher, executive editor of Work Truck, and today we're here to chat with Shaun Skinner, president and CEO of Isuzu Commercial Truck of America. But before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button and don't forget to check out our brand new podcast series on Spotify, Google, and Apple. Today's episode is sponsored by Isuzu Commercial Truck of America. I'm excited to chat with Shaun about his recent appointment, trends he's seeing, and to hear about some of his goals for the future. Welcome, Shaun.
Good to be here as always.
Thank you. So you were recently named the first local executive of an overseas Isuzu distributor to have an executive officer position within Isuzu Motors Limited. That's a mouthful. Can you share a little bit about what new responsibilities this appointment's going to entail?
I'll do my best. I think as this is the first time that anyone really outside of a Japanese person has held this type of position, I'm still finding my way a little bit and getting familiar with it. But I think my main priority is going to be work with the other executive management team at Isuzu Motors Limited, or I may refer to that as IML, in plotting our strategic course for the future. I think what they're looking for mainly from probably me and the North American market is really our focus on the area of advanced technologies like electric vehicles, and maybe even to the extent that you're seeing autonomous vehicles that are gaining traction and quite a bit of momentum here in the US and Canadian markets. And as we have regulations like you're going to see in California in 2024 that are really going to force the issue, along with customers that some of the larger, I would say, well-capitalized customers that have some of these very strong and aggressive carbon neutrality goals, I think they see the North American market as being one that may lead in these trends. And so how are we going to handle the challenges of this evolution, or some may say revolution, and how are we going to deal with that? And I think that we'll be able to be the first to kind of share some of that information, as I think we are ahead of many of the other markets that we globally do business in. So our area of experience, and I'd like to say expertise, will be able to help, I think, look at what is going on with this change in our industry and help provide input to the other companies and countries that are going to, or areas or regions of the world that are probably going to have to deal with that at some point in the future. I also think the appointment probably has a lot to do with the importance that IML sees with the North American market.
And what are some of your goals with the new position and responsibilities that you're taking on?
As mentioned, much of what I will do will stay similar or the same, but I do believe that there will need to be a shift in my goals and responsibilities that will revolve around how we as a distributor and how our dealers really work towards the future and what lies ahead with the ownership experience changes we're going to see with this transition to more of an EV, base. Now, I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but we better be prepared because it is going to be a very different ownership experience, and the support that we as an organization are going to have to provide is going to be different, and that what the dealers are going to have to do is going to be different. So how we adapt to all of that is going to be really important. So I think that there's going to be more focus on this longer term strategic. How do we ensure that we're set to go today? Because we still, as much talk as there is about EVs, and you were at NTEA, they are all over the place. As much as there is with that, we still have to stay in the here and now. We have to be ready for most of the trucks that are going to be sold for the short and midterm are still going to be diesel and gas trucks. So for 2024, 2027, how are we going to make sure that we meet those regulatory issues, and how are we going to be sure that we have the products that the customers are going to need? But at the same time, how are we going to be prepared that as we start this transition to some of these electric vehicles, whether through regulatory issues like you're going to have by states that's going to grow starting in California, or by customers that are trying to meet aggressive carbon neutrality goals, how are we going to make sure that we can stack all of that and do well at it all?
The last time we sat down was about 3 years after you were named president of Isuzu Commercial Truck of America. Can you share a little bit about Isuzu's growth since our last interview?
We've seen tremendous growth in demand. I think a lot of people have. I think in 2019, very good year. 2020, kind of nutty. Just a weird year in general. But 2021 things bounced back quite well, and I think the interesting part is, and not to overcomplicate this answer, but with the growth that we've seen since that period of time, is the growth in demand really over the last probably year and a half has been tremendous, and the bigger challenge has been keeping up with that. I think that last year, if you look at last year and all the challenges that a lot of us like to complain about and how difficult of a year it was there's no denying that, because we had unique and different challenges. But if you just objectively look at the numbers, Lauren, for us, 2021 was the second best year for our class 3 through 7 low cab forward product that we've ever had. So
Wow.
second best year in had all these pitfalls and things that we had to work around. And if you look at our parts sales, which is a great indication of our dealer service and parts business, it was the best year ever by a long shot. So when you look at what really transpired in 2021, while I think a lot of us like to look back and say there is this what I'll call, here's what we're able to supply, here's market demand, there's this huge missed opportunity that I call the land of disappointment. I think everybody is focused on that, but when you look at what we actually did, it was pretty damn good. However, moving forward, we know that we need to do better because there's more demand out there. So if all goes as planned, 2022 will be the year that we build more product than we ever have before, trying to catch up with that pent up demand. But there continues to be, supply chain challenges and things that really do make it a bit difficult to make it smooth and easy. So, from what have I seen from our success? I think our success has been great because we've sold everything that we can build, but there's that's good and bad. I mean, that's a double-edged sword. You don't want to miss opportunity, and we feel like we've missed that. And we know that we need to try to do our best to fix it. So we're working on that to try, like I said, and make this year a year that we build more trucks than we ever have before. But it seems like there's an insatiable appetite right now, so we're struggling to catch up on that.
We've touched on this a little bit throughout the conversation, and I know with everything happening in the world today, it can be difficult. But looking toward the future, what do you see as far as market shifts and further changes down the road?
I would say that let's start with the higher altitude stuff first, okay? Things that are probably, I think, high level and that a lot of people are going to want to know about. Supply chain challenges. Number one, I don't think that we're anywhere close to being out of that. We've seen what's happening in China right now with shutdowns there. I think we're going to continue to face, for a multitude of reasons, supply chain issues well past this year. So we're all going to have to kind of get used to dealing with that. I think also longer term though, and there won't be an immediate fix to that, I think it's going to cause all the OEMs, manufacturers to look at how do we maybe build protections in there? Is there things that we can do to look at making the flow of this stuff more consistent? That's a pretty high level question and one that isn't easily fixed immediately. So I think you're going to see that. More specific to our medium duty industry, I think that one thing that I've beat this drum hard when you and I have talked probably over the last 3 to 5 years, is I continue to believe that the growth in e-commerce, final and mid-mile, is going to continue to have an impact on the medium duty industry, which is kind of our playground. And I think that is not going to stop. And if you look at the trends with average distance of goods hauled, the percent that e-commerce accounts for overall retail, the distance goods are hauled continues to decline, which indicates, shorter final and mid-mile, transfer of goods. You also see that the percentage of e-commerce continues to grow. So, and I think also you're going to see areas of business that are predictable with that grow, but also some that are a bit of a surprise and we may not have seen coming. And we've had a few of those, like the delivery of vehicles to people's homes. During COVID, you didn't have a lot of people that were shopping for vehicles online and not going and inspecting them. Now it's becoming more common, and those areas help our business and will continue to. So some are going to be what I would call more traditional, some are going to be a bit unexpected, but I think that what you're going to continue to see is a change. For us is COVID acted as almost an accelerant or a catalyst for this growth in e-commerce, and I think that's a trend that's going to continue. And I also think that when you boil it down, like I mentioned, the last piece would be to me in my mind is, I've kind of touched on it, but this shift towards EV, if you walked around, anybody that was at the work truck show this year, if you walked around there was a multitude of them, and more of the OEMs are getting involved in that. And that is going to impact us as OEMs, and it's also going to impact how our dealers have to operate. And it's going to require us to work collectively on how do we ensure a proper customer experience that brings value to the brand for both us as an OEM, the dealer, and the customer. Because I've talked about for a long time, I think the differences in hardware in vehicles is going to diminish. You're going to have a more like kind with stuff because of the expense of these technologies. You're going to find more people utilizing, what I would say supplier driven content, because you can't have it all on your own. And I think that you're going to have to focus more on the brand and really working together as an OEM with the dealer and the customer to create the best customer experience possible. Because really what's going to happen is it's going to become more about the brand and their experience versus the hardware, is my opinion. So mouthful, a lot probably again to chew on there, but I don't know if you have any follow up on that, but those would be three major areas I see.
Is there any final thoughts that you would like to share with our audience before we conclude for the day?
I would say first and foremost, thank you. You're always kind of generous with your time. I really appreciate the ability to visit with you and kind of answer some of these questions. Sorry for some of the long answers, but always a pleasure to visit with you. And I would say secondly, all that know me know I'm an eternal optimist. I always try to look at the bright side, but I truly believe that while there are quite a number of challenges that we face right now, if you look at the medium duty segment and you look at our industry, I believe that the longer term trajectory is good. You look at, like I said, for the factors that I mentioned before, and I won't delve into that. I really feel good about that. And I don't mean to advertise for Isuzu, but that's my job. I also feel that we're in a great position to take advantage of that. Like I said, we're working on solutions with gas and diesel engines that will allow us the flexibility based on these emission regulations that are coming in 24 and 27. So we'll be able to have a great offering of product, probably the most broad that we've ever had, even though we're going to face some pretty stringent regulations. Along with that, we'll have our first N series EV truck that will be out late 2023, 2024, which will be an Isuzu EV in plenty of time for what's going to occur in California and the states where these zero emission vehicles are going to be required after that. And I don't know if you also saw that we announced for our class 6 and 7 product, a prototype that we're doing with Cummins. So we're not just resting on I would say that, we're going to say we're only going to be there for the, gas and diesel. We know those are important and we have to be there to be sure that we provide for the vast majority of the customers. But we also know there's a customer base that's looking towards the future, and we've got to be there to be sure that we are playing ball in that area too. So I think that we're in a great position, but I think that the growth that we're going to see in medium duty for all the reasons we discussed, final, mid-mile, e-commerce, the growth that you have with all of that, I feel really good about where the industry is going and our position in that. So that would be to convey to everybody my optimism with all of that.
I love it. And Shaun, thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. We always appreciate it.
Thank you, Lauren, very much. All the best to you and your family.
And as always, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Truck Chat, sponsored by Isuzu Commercial Truck of America. For anyone interested in learning more about Isuzu Commercial Trucks or Shaun Skinner, or for more episodes of Truck Chat, check out our links below. Till next time.